Hi, this is Rebecca from Blossom Crochet, and in this supplementary video we are discussing how to make modifications or adjustments to your flower headbands. Now these are made in adult cat size, and to discuss how these work, I'm going to actually borrow a photo of our cat Zeke, and I'm going to show you what you would measure and how to make adjustments to these. So let's dive right in. What you're going to want to do in order to modify your pattern is find 3 measurements on your cat or dog, whatever you might be working with today. One of them is the circumference of your cat's or dog's, your pet's head, I guess I should say. And that is going to be, just do it with dashes, this line here, underneath the chin, all the way around the front of your pet's head before the ears, like so. The other measurement, just mark this one as number 1 for you guys so you can see. This is number 1. The other measurement you're going to want is the space of the forehead between the ears. The third measurement you're going to take is a guess. You don't have to be perfect on this, but we want to guesstimate the width of the ear. Now let's put these measurements in place and talk about how you're going to modify the pattern to fit these measurements. The first thing you're going to want to do is modify the number of chains that go into the band. You might recall that in the pattern, it asks you to make 40 chains, and then you're going to half double crochet in those 40 chains. Now, if you want to make yours larger or smaller, you would use your pet's head circumference, this measurement number 1, and you would add or subtract in multiples of 5. That's really important because the petals are done in multiples of 5. So you'll want to add or subtract chains to get the length you need to make your pet's head circumference. You'll then HDC, half double crochet, in each one of these, just like it's called for in the pattern. So that doesn't change. You're still going to half double crochet in each one. The only thing that's going to change is your count is going to be off. If you do 35 stitches instead of 40, then you're going to have 35 at the end of the round. It's not a big deal as long as you keep track and make sure that you're only doing it in multiples of 5. The next thing you're going to want to do is change the ear holes. That is called for in round 2 of the band. Now in round 2, the pattern asks you to chain 10 and skip 6. But if you're making a larger or smaller hat, you're going to want to make sure that you take measurement number 3 into account. So, how would that work? Let's pretend your pet has a 3-inch ear hole instead of a 2-inch ear hole. What you would do is you would measure how big is 3 inches. How many stitches do I need in order to allow 3 inches for the ear hole? You're going to count that number, and that is going to replace the number of stitches you skip. Let's pretend that number is 8. This is just an example. Let's say we want to skip 8 stitches instead of 6. No problem. What you would do then is when you're making the chains at the beginning of that round, we need to know how many to make. A good rule of thumb is to add 4. That'll give you a little bit of extra looseness here. So again, you're going to measure how many stitches you need to make that ear hole. That's how many you're going to skip. Instead of skipping 6, you're going to skip whatever the number that needs to be. Then you're going to add 4, and that's the number you're going to chain. So our pattern called for you to chain 10, skip 6, but you might chain 12, 8 plus 4. you'd chain 12 to start yours and skip 8. Finally, well, actually not finally, but finally for this round, we want to talk about the forehead. Okay, that was measurement number 2. Now, just like we did with the ear holes, we would measure how much space do you need. If your pet's forehead was only 1.5 inches, you might only need about 5 double crochet stitches. If your pet's forehead was 4 inches, you might need closer to 10. You'll have to measure and see how many stitches you need to cover there, and then adjust this section of the round 2 base accordingly. We have 7 double crochet, but you might need to only do 5. You might need to add 10. However many you need to get the size your pet needs. That's what you would do there. Then for the final ear hole, you would just do whatever you did in step 2. If you skipped 8 and chained 12, you'll do the same thing again on the other side. Finally, now really for sure, finally, no tricks this time. Finally, you're going to cover those ear holes in this last round of the base. And what you're going to do is you're going to use basically however many chains you skipped, plus 2. So here, what we did in our pattern was the pattern calls for you to skip 6, chain 10. And then when you come back over it to fill that in, we half double crochet around and put 8 half double crochets around that chain space. That's what makes this so nice and loose. It doesn't constrict it as much. And it also gives it a little bit of height. You can see these kind of pop up higher. That's by design to give your pet some extra space there and not irritate the ears. So what you're going to want to do is, again, however many you skipped to get that length you needed, you're going to add 2 to that. So in this example, we would have skipped 8, chained 12, and then to fill in, we would half double crochet 8 plus 2, so 10. When you get to the forehead, you just do 1 in each, just like the pattern calls for, and then 10 on the other side to finish it. And that would finish this yellow section, the headband section. When you come to make the petals, yours is going to be just a tad bit different because each petal is 5 stitches. So for example, if you had made a chain 50 instead of a chain 40, you'll end up with 10 petals instead of 8 petals. If you chained only 30 instead of 40, you'll end up with 6 petals instead of 8.